We're going to have a look at some scented rhododendrons. They're also known as smellies. They come in quite a different range of shapes, and this is one of the type that grows to quite a sort of leggy, high, rather random shape. We'll look at a couple of others that are more rounded and perhaps more compact, ideal for growing in pots or for small gardens. This is Rhododendron crassum. There's about 12 forms of this, but this one, as you can see, it makes short growth like that, which is ideal for cuttings. So you've got this year's growth, and again it's lovely and bendy and soft, but not too soft. Then you've got last year's growth here. Again, you don't want to damage a stock plant, so take a cut just down there, sloping cut, and that's the material from which you'll take your cutting. We remove the old leaves, and then I'll just chop that off there, but we will do the proper cutting system when we get back to the glass house. But that's ideal for cutting. You can see some of this new growth has put on so much that it's actually a bit of a nuisance to use, but you could, theoretically, you could actually take a cutting. Either you could cut that off and use this as a cutting, because it is still quite flexible, or you could go under here. It's important to either go down to the next node or to leave a couple of leaves at the top so that this won't die back. But you could take that and then you could just trim it off up here. So I just need to drop that on the floor. Obviously I will clean that up with a knife, and I would put on some fungicide just to stop any kind of disease getting into there, because any cut you make on the leaf or the material, the stem, is an open invitation to any diseases or things that are in the air. So that, either of those will do for a cutting. I prefer to go for that one really. So that's crassum. We're going to go and have a look at another two types of scented rhododendron. This is Rhododendron Countess of Haddington, and as you can see it's a much more rounded shape. If it was left to its own devices and not hemmed in like this, it would probably be a much rounder shape and be about 5.5 feet high. A couple of metres, I suppose, most. But because it's having to battle for space, it has gone off slightly at a tangent, but it's a much more compact habit, and it's much more standard in habit, and you do have a tremendous amount of flowers on this. I'm just going to go in and collect some cuttings. Again, what you're looking for is something fairly about that kind of height, really nice and stocky. And what you have to do as well is look at the whole bush and get an idea of what the average kind of growth is, because you want something that's typical of that plant. Something like this is actually quite nice. I like this one, this bit. Yeah, that's okay. You don't want to go any thinner than that for something that grows this big, really. You can see the leaf scars between the new growth and last year's growth. There's quite a distinctly different colour on this one as well. The only thing that, it's not, I mean, it's okay, but it's got a slight curve on it, but you can prune that out and it will be fine. But that's one cutting. I'm going to take a few more. They are a bit curly, aren't they? Right, I might just go right back and take that whole lot, because that's a bit too thin. I wouldn't bother with that one. But the other three, I can't count. The other four will all make decent cuttings. And one thing that I have to remember to do particularly is to put the name on the bag, so that when I get back to the mist house with 10 or 20 bags, they're all clearly labelled as to what they are. So I'm going to do that now before I forget. This is Rhododendron Princess Alice. Again, you can see how many flowers it's had this year. It's been a lovely year, very warm, but if you can imagine, these whole bushes were just covered in flowers. This is actually ideal for growing in a small garden or for growing in a pot. It's quite a neat, compact shape. This is actually, it's possibly 3 to 5 bushes here. And when the plant is that small, if you've got this kind of space, it's a good idea to plant them en masse like that, because you then really catch the perfume. So the cuttings on this are going to be quite small. This one's a little bit softer. We can do cuttings now, but you could actually leave it for another couple of weeks. But this has quite a long window of opportunity for taking cuttings because there's new growth coming on all the time. And if you want to take cuttings off your own plants and you're really concerned that it's too woody or they've gone too leggy, always have a look around the back of the plant or in the middle of the plant, because you'll find the later growth coming on, and you can sometimes, you can use that. You have a choice. But I'm just going to take, I was going to go for that bit, wasn't I? So that's ideal for Princess Alice. You won't need to pinch that out or anything. You will literally, you heel these off. So you pull with almost as if you're holding the cutting material between the ball of your fingers. So you're not pulling it like that because you'll rip it and tear it. You're actually, not sure if I can do it on that bit, right. You're actually holding on. It sounds a bit fussy, but you're actually holding on to the stem and pulling with the back part of your finger in a way, so that you're pulling part of, you get that heel of old wood. That's really important. So we're going to go back to the mist house now, and we'll just run through how you prepare the cuttings. These are some of the cuttings we brought back. This is the cutting of crassum, and we're just going to trim the actual cutting. That's, if you look there, you can see the leaf scars between the new growth and the old growth. So I'm going to cut across just below that, and I'm just going to try to keep it as clean, and I'm going to have to faff around a bit just to make it nice and neat. So that gives you a nice clean cut. You can see the cambium layer is just under the surface, and that's what you need also to expose a little bit more, because that's the area of undifferentiated cells, and you need to encourage it to produce roots, so you need to expose it first of all. So we're just going to just take a tiny bit off, and again the cambium's just in that area. That's going to be enough. You've got a chance for it to root all around that area, you've got a chance in the old leaf scars, and you've got a chance at the base of the cutting. So if you were to move that around and look at the top, there's an awful lot of leaf there, and this is all going to lose water. And although you're going to have it under a mist system here, you do need to reduce the amount of leaf in proportion to the cutting. So we need to get rid of quite a bit. I'm going to use a pair of scissors. And what you don't want to do is have too much space between the lowest leaf and the base of the cutting. If it's too leggy, if you were to take most of those leaves off, or even leaves off, you would find that you sometimes get a really spindly cutting. So with something like a rhododendron, definitely not. So I'm just going to have a look and think, well, I'll get rid of some of these big leaves. If you cut about there, you don't need to take any more off. If you go too close to the stem, and this stem is quite soft, if you go too close to the stem, it will rot off into the stem, and then you'll have to cut it right back or chuck it. If you cut there, eventually this will seal naturally. That will turn black and it will just fall off. So it's the best way to do it. Let the plant do some of the work for you in a way. And I'm going to go around here. I'm going to cut a couple more off. One. And then there's still too much leaf. So what I'm going to do is just carefully, I'm going to put those 3 big leaves. I'm going to reduce those 3 big leaves by, it's probably just under half. As a rule of thumb, if you think there's like an imaginary middle line there, we'll probably just go up a little bit past that. So nice clean sharp scissors. And then what we also do, I'm going to have to cheat here because I haven't got my flat, I usually use a flat plate, but I'm just going to dip it in here for a minute. This is actually the rooting hormone, but for today I'm going to use it to seal the ends of these cut leaves. You should get rid of the excess. If you were to leave a lot on there, that would cause a little bit of dieback along the edge. But although that's rooting hormone, it's predominantly, talcum, isn't it? With a small amount of fungicide in it and a tiny amount of the actual hormone. So if you think of it as just something to dry off the cut and the fungicide to prevent any diseases getting in through the cut. So just clean that up a bit. But that basically is your cutting. You then dip the stem. tap off to get rid of the excess. And what I've got here is it's a mixture of peat or peat substitute with a bit of grit and a bit of perlite. And I'm just going to put that in. You only need to go in far enough to hold that cutting securely in place. So this is quite firm really. It's not rock hard, I haven't thumped it down, but it's quite firm, it's quite capable. So just, that's it. Close it up gently around that. You'd fill the whole tray, water them in, and we have a commercial mist system. So what we tend to do is have all the cuttings facing in towards the mist so that the mist hits that side. If you hit the back of the leaf all the time, the cutting just gives up because basically you're stopping it from functioning. So that was crassum, and here we have, well, that's 1, 2, 3, that's the 3rd year on that crassum, but you can see how it is a really, really upright growing plant. Whereas this is one of the other ones we looked at, that's Princess Alice. So this is naturally much more compact, you get a lot of nice short growth on it. If it had gone a bit leggy, you could just pinch the tops out. If you were going to do that, you would actually look to pinch or cut neatly on, I'm trying to think, probably here with that leaf, just above that leaf on a sloping cut. You don't want to cut on the outside leaf because the plant will then tend to grow that way. So you try and cut on a, that's actually a little bit too low. I might go above those actually, so that the plant will then shoot here, and you could pinch those out to even it up, and that will make a nice branch plant.